Hello, hello, hello. We are here uh, after an eventful weekend. This is the Black Butterfly podcast. My name is Amara.
Hi guys, I'm Candace and welcome to the Cocoon Room.
Our bodies may be tired, but our minds are not. So we want to make sure that we are giving you guys the best of us. And so we have a light topic to talk about, but we also want to talk about, our complete event that was yesterday. So, with that being said, I'd like to start on that. It it was pretty cool because a bunch of people came out. Uh, we had a lot of donations, right? And so we'll get to all that later. But also we're traveling. We're traveling, and you got a time change, right?
I do. I have an hour difference.
And so it can be crazy, when you run up down the highway, but it's for good causes. So uh, those things can tire your body out. So we, as you can see, we don't have the same energy, but we have the same focus, right? And so we're gonna try to get the show started on the right foot. Any opening remarks, Candace?
I would just concur with you. I feel like yesterday was it was really fun. It was exciting, but very tiring. We were out. I think it was at least 90 degrees. So with the heat, I kind of got a little exhausted. And then you, very persistent. Hey, you gonna come to the after party?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, but other than that, I think I'm okay. I think I'm more physically tired than mentally tired. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll start off with our scripture of the day, with
All
Proverbs
right,
22
guys.
6. Go ahead.
So Proverbs 22 and 6 is our scripture for today. And I chose this scripture just because we were talking about parental love. So the scripture states, train a child up in the way he or she should go, and when he or she is old, he or she will not depart from it. And as you guys, if you have any, religious background or spiritual background, I know you've heard that before. Like if you teach a kid, if you teach them something and you give them lessons and different things like that, sometimes they'll lose focus. But if you give them the tools to put in their toolbox, later on in life, they'll pick back up. So that's why I chose that scripture.
I heard that scripture many times growing up. I just didn't know which one it was. Uh, but like you said, if you had some religious background, you heard that saying either from your parents, grandparents, or from elders. And so that's one thing that's been consistent with our community is being able to raise up a child and have those same concepts. And so that scripture is always being used in that form. Um, so this podcast specifically is about parental love. And so we wanted to keep it simple because we know our weekend was going to be kind of hectic. And so this choice, kind of dear to my heart because I do have kids. And so I always analyze. Well, first of all, one thing I do, I always think about, when how we were raised, right? I did not just me specifically, but our generation. And then I look at how we're raising our kids, right? And so I always call us the punk parents, right? Because we was hardcore, right? We was raised up in some interesting situations, but we came out kind of all right. And so and I look at my kids now and I laugh because I'm like, man, like this is totally different from how I was raised, right? But you want to have the same effects of having that parental love to them, um, and so that's why I'm particularly interested in this topic. Um, with that said, we're going to start off with the definition. I'm going to ask the question: what is parental love? And there's the definition. Go ahead, Candace.
All right, parental love is characterized by warm affection, care, comfort, concern, nurture, support, acceptance, or simply love that a child can feel from their parents. And oftentimes, when we talk about parental love, some people don't really understand what that means. I believe that most people think just because you have a child, that you automatically show the child love or that you're automatically are bonded with the child, but that is just not true. And so typically when parents don't bond with the child long term, you see emotional effects from that. And the children have a hard time regulating their emotions because they didn't feel nurtured or they didn't feel like they had a bond with their parents.
So my question, because I'm gonna ask questions with this, so because I think this is an interesting topic because I mean when we first started this podcast, you said we're still dealing with our childhood trauma, and so one of my questions I do have is, uh, do you believe like people's relationships, like let's say if they have trust issues or just how they go about their day, their daily routines, do you think that obviously it stems from childhood, but do you also think some of that stems from having or not having parental love?
Well, I think first we have to look at DNA. DNA always plays a part in a child's mental state or stability. So your kids are 50% of their mother, 50% of their father, and then everything else is environmental. So if children are exposed to a healthy environment, a nurturing environment, that's just not like love from the parent, but also like where they live at. Where you live at also plays in a part in what your emotional state will be. So DNA, parenting, and also where you live. And that has an effect on what the child's characteristics will be like growing up and also their emotional state. So I do believe that if parents provide a nurturing environment for the child and a healthy environment, oftentimes you'll see less anxiety, less stress, less depression, and less mental health.
And I know, so and we're a different generation, right, from generations in past, and so this is a huge topic, right? So when we talk about parental love, co-parenting, and so we're going to give the definition. Do you want? I'll let you allow you to get the definition for co-parenting because obviously I'm asking questions, and so I'm just teeing it up for you. And so there's the definition right there.
Okay, so the definition of co-parenting. This is a post-divorce parenting arrangement in which both parents continue to jointly parent in their child's upbringing and activities. I This involves a sustainable amount of interaction between the parents, both in public and in private. Now, if the parents divorced or separated on good terms, and they are both really good parents and they don't have toxic traits, then the co-parenting is just really easy. It's very smooth. Maybe the parents separated because they just wasn't seeing eye to eye, or they fell out of love, but it had nothing to do, with the children. And so they still go into that relationship wanting to make sure that they're nurturing the kids and providing a healthy and stable environment. So then they go into that direction with ease. However, if the parents display toxic characteristics or toxic traits, it's going to be hard for them to co-parent the child, because in some relationships, people leave the relationship because there's some type of control that another person wants to have over the other individual. If that's the case, it's going to be hard for them to co-parent healthy, and the child will be able to see the effects of that. If that makes sense.
Perfect sense. One question I do have, because I'm just, like I said, I'm just gonna be asking questions because you are the expert, you are the professional, right? Keep reminding people that y'all, she's an expert professional, right? Um, do you think so? Like when we talk about co-parenting, like we've seen great co-parenting situations, and then we've seen, like you say, toxic co-parenting situations. How crucial do you think it is to keep that same agenda going for the child, right? As far as the parents going. So I guess my question is, how important do you think co-parenting needs to be as far as being on the same page as with two parents as it relates to the evolution of the child?
I think it's critical. Just because the parents separate, I don't believe that the child routine should diminish. I know that you're living in a separate house, and so things are going to be a little bit different as far as like the time schedule. But the routine, if you can't keep it consistent, it should be consistent, because for one, the kid is already dealing with the separation of the parents, and then branching off into different homes. So the routine should be consistent, because you don't know a child's emotional state. Oftentimes, children will blame themselves for the parents getting a divorce. Excuse me, and they'll carry that weight with them for a very long time, and it does cause health issues, and it also cause the children to be withdrawn, and it will begin to affect their grades. So if the parents can come to a happy medium and not discuss like the trauma that they're going through with each other around the kids, it will help out a lot. Oftentimes when people are upset and they're frustrated, they'll begin to talk about their exes in front of the children, which affects the children emotionally, because then the kid is in the middle and they feel like they have to choose or pick sides.
One thing I would add to that too is, and then I just always use personal experiences. So um, I would remember uh, when my mother would get frustrated with us as kids, and because we all had different fathers, and uh, my stepfather, that's why I love him to this day. He would always tell my mom, "Don't talk about them in front of them."
Hmm.
He would always say that. And I didn't. I mean, obviously, you're a kid. He ain't did this, he ain't did that, right? But we were kids, and so uh, he, I would all, as I'm getting older and I'm seeing, how our generation processes things versus the previous generation, they had a lot of common sense with a lot of when it came to parenting. And I always go back to that. That stuff that rings in my ear so true because as I got older, I realized some of the things she was frustrated with on my own. She didn't have to say it, if that
Hmm.
makes sense, right? Eventually the child is going to mature, become a teenager, and then becomes an adult. You start being more cognizant and aware of some of the things that's being done and some of the things that's not being done. And so I always give him, he's as crazy as that, but as a fox, but he's very wise in some of the things that he would say. And I remember that like it was yesterday. He was like, "Don't do that in front of them because eventually the truth is going to come out, right?" And so so that's why I asked that question. Um, so we're talking about co-parenting. We're talking about parents, right, and how they deal with the kids. But then we like to talk about the roles, right? Because if you're parents, right, you're either the mother or the father, right? And so, like to pivot over to asking the question, uh, what is motherly love, right? Because we have an interpretation of what it is, right? We
Hmm.
have an image of what it is, right? We think we know what it is, but I would like to provide definitions, and so that's why we like to get information in the beginning and then start getting opinions and assessments in the middle and the end. And so I will allow you to define motherly love.
All right, so excuse me. Motherly love is considered passive of possessive of affection, where a mother will protect their offsprings at all costs. So that is the definition of motherly love.
And then we also, and so this is funny, she had a definition for fatherly love. I couldn't find a definition for fatherly love because and immediately I just of course me being a father, I got defensive. I'm like, dang, I could find motherly love, but I couldn't find fatherly love, right? And it was saying something about God, and like you know spitting that into their definition, but she found it. And so here it is. Let me find it. There it is right there.
All right, so a father should be tender, and a child has the ability to tap into the tenderness of a man's heart. A dad should provide empathy, sacrifice, affection, attention, gentleness, firmness, and security. And so those are just the two definitions that we have for motherly and fatherly love. All right, here's one. I thought this one was really pivotal because sometimes people don't know that, not just with hugs, but also with actually telling your children that you love them. And then we'll talk about this after I read the definition. If your child um, does not receive hugs, they can get into a deficit state that can lead to negative mental health. The children can also have these symptoms such as headaches, abdominal pain, anxiety, and sadness. Okay, so when we talk about hugs and we talk about love, if you have a relationship with, with your peers or with your friends or growing up, you talk to some of your friends and you say, hey, my mom and dad tells me every day that they love me, or they give me kisses and they give me hugs. And then you have children say, well, my parents never kissed me, and my parents never hugged me. They never told me that they loved me, but they were not abusive to me. They always provided me with a nice clean home. We always had food on the table. Both my mom and dad worked. They communicated with each other. They just wasn't huggers or kissers, and they never verbalized that they loved me. And so although the parents feel like, well, just because I'm providing a home for them, they have all of their needs met. I'm showing them that I love them, but I'm not telling them that I love them. That still causes children emotional distress because they don't know where they kind of stand in the parents' life. Well, you gave me all of these things, right? But you didn't tell me that you cared about me. And long term, it does affect the children as well. So it's super important, even if it's, in the course of your day, if you don't get to tell them before they go to school, shoot them a text, give them a call, make sure that you kiss your kids. Make sure that you're hugging them. Make sure that you're telling them that that you love them, because the things that you're not telling them, they will begin to seek that out in other individuals, whether it's a positive love, positive words of affirmation, or if it's negative.
And so this was something else that I found online, which was interesting about fatherly love. Is this research shows that a loving and nurturing father improves outcomes for children, families, and communities. I thought that was powerful. And with my own kids, it's funny because my 12-year-old, I always mess with her now. So you're my firstborn, and so I always give her a hug and kiss her on the forehead. And she's like screaming and like that. But with my son, I do the same thing, and with my 1-year-old. And so my wife says it gives my 12-year-old confidence. And so I would ask you, why do you think it gives kids confidence that they're not the mother, because the mother is always nurturing, she's always, in most cases, right, that she's always there, she's going to be supportive and all that, but the father, can you speak about that? Because I see how you love Black Jesus, right? And so, but I
Absolutely.
see how he was moving around yesterday, so I see the affection and the love that you have for him, right? But can you speak about the confidence that he gives you, your father gives you, uh, display his love?
Yes. Okay. So you got to really think about it from a girl's perspective, right? You're the first man she'll ever love. So it's important that you give her all of the tools that she needs, right? Telling her that she's gorgeous, telling her that she's beautiful, telling her that she's smart, giving her words of affirmation, because you're helping build her self esteem, right? You're actually pouring into her. If you're not giving her those things, and you're not saying those things to her, but she always hear you elevating your voice, or you're screaming, or you're yelling, she'll think that that's appropriate, that is how a man's supposed to show her love, versus you being very gentle and tender with her. Okay, so you're shaping what it looks like for her to know what love looks like. So you can go from a standpoint of being negative with your baby, or you can go from a standpoint of being very positive with your daughter. And so for us, it's okay for our males to give you a compliment. I get that. But my father gave us that, right? He bought us flowers, he bought us candy, he told us he loved us, he told us we were smart, that we're intelligent, that we can do anything that we want. So when someone else says that, it wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I'm blown away by it. Let me just stick to this and guy like a magnet. She already knows those things about herself. So anything else someone tells her, it just already adds to it. It doesn't make her who she is.
So
So
we have any comments, and that's why I asked that. So I'm glad that you answered that. So we got um, comments from our YouTube community, and I know who this is. This is my sister-in-law, Kirsten. So she's on GK. So she's telling. So what's up, Kirsten? She's saying that she tells her that she loved, baby Grace, that she loved her 5 times a day. Yeah. I think it's interesting because we don't. I think I'm speaking for Black men. Like, I don't think that we've been taught enough to display that, right? And I'll use an example. What was the other day? Friday. I was walking him, and he fell to scrape his knee. Right? First,
mm,
get up. That's my first thought. No,
no.
I didn't say it, but that was my first thought. It's like, and he looked at me, and I didn't say anything. And I walked over to him and rubbed his knee. You okay? And he just looked at me like, and he made a face and got back to what he was doing, riding scooter. And so, and as a father, I have to be reminded constantly that you know when you display that, like, oh, just be tough, don't show emotion. You know, that's not normal, right? You want your kids to show emotion. You want them to, because they're not robots, right? We're not animals and nothing like that. No, if something is wrong, you want to tell them it's okay to cry. You know what I'm saying? And so it's normalizing that behavior. What I was trying to say, in other words. And so with him, I'm being very cautious and very careful with some of the things that I do talk to him. Well, he's 3, but so what I'm saying, like, it's, things like scraping your knee, or if you bump your head or something. Instead of getting mad, I'm rubbing his head. Like, it's okay. You're all right. Just don't do it next time. And so that's why that's why I do that. Go ahead.
I love that you took that approach because when we were growing up, and I know you've seen it, I know you've recognized it. If you have two children, right, and they're both outside and they're playing, and the little boy falls and scrapes his knee, and the little girl falls and scrapes her knee, they're gonna immediately say, "Oh, baby girl, how
Yes.
are you okay? Let mommy kiss
Yes.
her, let daddy kiss her, let me put a band-aid
Yes.
on it." They're gonna tell the little boy, "Get up, you a boy, shake it off," right? But
Yes.
when we're telling our kids that, we're already separating and dividing them, right? We're letting the girl know that it's okay to show the sensitivity side, but we're telling the boy, be aggressive, don't let things affect you. But
Mm-hmm.
then when they go out into the community and they're aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
then we upset about it. So we have to let them know that it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to show that you're hurt, right? It's okay to cry, because we have tear ducts so that we can cry as a way that we're able to cleanse. And so I really appreciate that you took that route with your son, because it's teaching him that, hey, when something's wrong with you, it's okay for you to show you to tell me, and I'll be there to help pick you up. Good
Yeah.
job.
So, but for immediately, but I'm just saying, in my head, the first thing that popped, man, don't get your, and then I didn't want to say it. I'm like, I caught myself, and I'm like, nah, let me walk over there. So it's retraining myself, obviously, when I'm
Retraining.
so absolutely. So that's why I shared that. Do I need to check in there for Facebook? Yes, I agree. Of course, now she checks her name 15 times. It can be difficult to display what is modeled for what was modeled for you, but it's important to be intentional. Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with that. I always say, be what you needed, right? Try to be what you needed when you were at your lowest, right? And yes, that's Sister Love with the corny dad joke. She is hilarious. Erica Klein just saying very important. Yes, I do. I think too, it creates a well-rounded individual too when the father's involved and showing that. Like, I'm not saying he got to be crying and wuss all over the place, right? Because that would not separate him as a man from woman, right? Because if he's all over the place and mom's all over the place, he's like, okay, which role you playing, right? So, but it's just showing that you can be masculine and show emotion, and it's okay to show emotion as a male. And so I think, and a lot of us too, I didn't, well, it was interesting because my stepfather, like, we got whoopings. I'm just gonna be honest, we got whooped. We got the bleep beat out of us, right? My last whooping was with a PlayStation controller, so that's how when PlayStation first came out, right? So that how long that was, right? But he before he whooped us, he would explain what he's about to whoop us for. So we sitting there crying, oh, this about to happen again. Then we get a whooping, and then he would explain again, ask us why do you understand why he had to do what he had to do? And then he would love us. He's like, I love you, and kisses. And I'm like, nobody trying to hear that, man. You didn't tuck my legs up, right? But as I have my own kids, and I'm like, I see what even though the method was probably wrong, but he was trying to communicate, like, hey, this is what you did wrong. We need to get you to do this right next time. And so he's like, I talk to him all the time. I was like, that was what I told him. I said, that was child abuse. He said, ain't nobody trying to hear all that, right? We grown. And he's like, but he told me the one day, he said, you too grown to be talking about child abuse. He's like, ain't you like 41 or something? And I'm like, okay. So but it's just funny how the generations are different approaches when it comes to parenting and scolding the child. And so I'm sorry, that's just funny. We would like to, so we talk about parenting, we talk about the fatherly love and the motherly love, right? But then you talked about toxic parenting. And so we have, of course, we'll ask the question, what is a toxic parent? And I have the definition right here. And I'll let you go ahead.
So, because we're talking about parental love, I wanted people to to be able to separate what healthy love looks like, and also what toxic relationships look like, as a parent. Oftentimes people display a lot of toxic traits, but they are unaware of it because it's learned behavior from their past. Okay. So these are parents who consistently behave in ways that cause guilt, fear, or obligation in their children.
That's the rest of that for this right there.
Thank you. Their actions aren't isolated events, but patterns of behavior that negatively shape the child's life. Okay, so as adults, like Eugene said, Amaru said, we're in our 40s now, and I know everybody didn't grow up in a perfect home, so they were dealing with at least one parent, that may have been toxic, whether they were in the home or outside of the home. And sometimes you will pick up those traits just because you were in the home with that person, and they help shape who you are, but you don't realize that you're taking some of those same toxic traits and raising your children in that type of environment. And so when the kids get older and they don't have a sound relationship with the parents, you don't understand why. Oh, my kid doesn't call and check on me. Or every time I communicate with my kid, we have an argument or disagreement. Or my kid doesn't remember my birthday. Why? Because they were not. That's the inside thing.
Yeah.
Because they're not bonded with you just because of how you raise them in the home. And so we say oftentimes now, when you know better, you absolutely have to do better. So if you couldn't get it right with your kids, a lot of you are grandparents now. Try to get it right with your grandchildren. It is very important that you raise your children in love. And so I'll just follow up with you, Eugene, as far as you getting whoopings or spankings, right? You lived, you didn't die, you survived. Growing up in the 80s and the 90s, I don't know too many kids that we grew up with that didn't get whoopings. Okay, it's
Wait,
four of
wait.
us.
Before you go on, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Remember, we still. I was just telling my daughter this. We got paddled in school.
We did.
Remember? And so she was like,
Yeah.
just not, but she was like, "What's paddling?" And I was just like, "Just go another room because you know what that mean. Like, you know what I mean. Like that's crazy. Like we got paddled up into what grade? Uh,
They still paddled in high school.
did we get paddled as seniors? I don't remember getting paddled as.
They still paddled in high school. My freshman or sophomore year, they were still paddling.
Okay, I didn't mean
They
to
were
interrupt you. Go
still,
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
they were still paddling. Yes, I do remember that. And I thought I was like a great student. I remember in junior high school, Mrs. Shaw. If anybody remember Mrs. Shaw, she did not play. We had a substitute teacher one day, and she said, "When I get back, the whole class, no one needs to talk. Everyone better be quiet." And I was like, her classroom was so quiet, you can hear a pin drop in her classroom. But two of my friends sat behind me and they didn't do their math work, so they kept tapping me on my shoulder, trying to get the answers. I'm turning around, giving them the answers. And it was her son that actually was the substitute teacher that day. So he wrote our names down. She
Wow.
came back to school the next day. I was like, oh my, she called all of our names. I said, mm. She was one of those who took her hand all the way back. I
And the
said,
paddle
yeah,
with the holes in it. See that?
that's what she had.
Yes.
Mhm.
And I didn't mean to stop your thought, but my paddling was with Dee DeVans. And I told this to my wife, and she was just. It's funny when I tell stories that I did in high school. My wife was like, "What? Like you did what?" I remember mooning the Miss McFarland class. I was crazy.
In
I was
high
like,
school?
yes, I
Oh,
was
you're
mooning.
terrible.
She had the little window by the door, and people dare me, and that's what remember my mother said. You are very dangerous because you think before you do something, so you've already thought out the consequence. So I'm,
Mhm.
hey, you won't do that, Eugene, whatever. I didn't, thinking. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna catch me. Went over there, as I'm moving the door, D. Defense is walking right past, and so I'm trying to hurry up, pull my pen, and walk up. He knew me from Pulaski, right? Russell, come here, and then he'd have me against the wall. Of course, I had windbreakers on. Remember the thin pants or whatever? He lit me up, and that was that. Yeah, I ain't getting out of that. I'm done. I'm done getting hours after that. So, but go. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But yes, I do remember paddling being in school. And actually, since you brought that up, they just passed a law. I don't know if it was Alabama. I have to look at it. I seen it the other day that they put it back in the schools in that
That's
state.
gonna be interesting. Is that Kansas said Utah's bringing paddling back? So
Okay, well maybe it was Utah. I seen an article
I'm gonna ask
yesterday.
Ken, have you ever got a paddle? I don't think Ken got a paddle. You think Kenny got a paddle in the school?
No, he was kind of reserved. Probably
Yeah,
not.
yeah. But I know 85 probably percent of the people I know probably got paddle. You know what I'm saying? Especially the dudes I knew. So I'll bring that number down about 60, 65, 60, 65. He said not at work. But you got paddle in college, bro? What you was doing? Oh, probably at home, right? With mom was wearing that tail out, little slick mouth. Um, but so like, yeah, we a lot of our generation was the pound, the corporal, what they call it, is that what they call it?
Corporal punishment.
Corporal punishment. And so extension cords, belts. I remember my auntie, I never forget this, my auntie, she was like, go in the back and you pick the switch off the tree. And of course, I walked back with some little twig like this. She said, "Nah, bruh, nah." And she went to get the little. She got the little branch for me. It woke me. I forgot what we did. Something crazy, but that was what that was. He said Vasquez did try. What are you doing in Vasquez class? What are you? Well, he had problems with a lot of people, so that's crazy. But yeah, that was the method of parenting back then. As what's the saying? Spare the rod, spare the child. And
That's in
so
the Bible.
yes, and it's funny talking about this, right? Uh, Parents are now learning other ways of parenting that are just as effective, and so she is a huge advocate of that. And of course, when we first talked about it, I'm like, that's crazy. That's some foolishness. And she's like, no, bro, like, look at the statistics, because I'm a numbers. Look at the statistics, right? And I'm just like, oh, okay. And so it's, like she says, evolving, it's changing, it's just as effective. And so that's cool. Um, it's our cousin. My cousin, hey, cuz. Hey, I found, yes, online. As you know, Wakefield, the last name, so that's part of the tribe over there.
Hi,
Um,
cousin.
yes. And so, um, but like we were saying before, when our generation is different, and so I'll ask you this. Let me ask you this question.
Real quickly, let me follow up
Go ahead.
from
Go ahead. Go
from
ahead.
Jay's comment. Jay, I absolutely love your comment. One, because again, like you said, when you know better, you absolutely do better. So it was four of us growing up in the home. My sister had like severe allergies. She had asthma, so she never got a spanking, right? But me and my two older siblings, we did, right? And so people learn to parent different. So my sister's view as far as like spanking would be totally different, right? Because she wasn't one who got spanked, so she definitely don't believe in that. She believe in like you can talk to a child and redirect them, and give them the information that they need to help them make better choices. Okay, so that's a good parenting technique. Now, what if you are in a marriage where one parent believes in spanking and the other person doesn't believe in spanking? That can cause a lot of conflict. And so yes, it can cause a lot of conflict. So what you have to do is learn to agree on what works best. And I will say that some kids, you can be verbal with them and communicate with them. And
Big
look
bro,
at
check it in.
Anthony said his answer didn't stop nothing. Well, Anthony, my parents was a stickler. My sister had asthma and allergies, and they refused to lay hands on that child. So no, she never got spankings. But like I said, if you have two different parenting styles, one who wants to spank, and then the other one who wants to use verbal communication to discipline the child, you guys have to agree on which is going to be the best parenting style. Again, some kids you can communicate what you want for them, the desired behavior, and they're going to do it. And then some kids are going to test the waters. And so with kids like that, the best parenting style is reward and subtract, right? If they're doing a really good job, you want to reward the behavior. Now, it doesn't have to be something extreme, right? But if they're not doing a good job, then you want to remove some things away. Because when we parent kids out of love, we're showing them how to be nurturing and affectionate, and we're teaching them not to be aggressive. But if you're being aggressive with them, if you're yelling, if you're screaming, if you're spanking, you're teaching them how to be aggressive. You're teaching them that it is okay when someone doesn't do something that you like to hit them. And so that's why Jay is saying it's other ways to parent kids that are more effective. So we
And
want to show kids what we want them to do, to give us a desired result, but we have to make sure that we're leading by example. We don't
so
want
are
to.
you? Are let me ask you this: are you suggesting, or are you saying that any type of corporate punishment is unwarranted?
And I'm not saying
No,
that.
no,
What
I'm
I'm
not just
saying,
asking.
no, 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 I'm not saying that. But we have to remember it's a difference between spanking a kid and beating a kid. Some
Yeah.
people don't know how to discipline their kids, they take it too far. Now, if a kid is putting scissors in a socket or, messing with something like, kids do, little
Mm,
kids get into stuff,
mm.
right? You have to make sure that you're redirecting them. And at some point, again, if you are a parent that wants to spank, um, it's within limits. So it just depends on what works best for your home. But again, corporal punishment, it depends on who the kid is. Like your kids have a very mild manner, so I don't think that your kids are
Oh
warranted
no,
for
my
corporal
kids
punishment.
they be doing a whole lot of crazy stuff though. I can't sit and look at my phone. My son he done crawled up on my shoulder and trying to flip, and my daughter she don't really do nothing. It's just him. He be doing all type of crazy stuff. So Kenny,
But
go ahead.
But from a therapist standpoint, we have to recognize some of those behaviors is age appropriate. The one thing that people forget, like when you see a toddler that's 1 or 2 and they're crying and they're wanting mommy or they're wanting daddy, some people like, oh, they're just being naughty. No, at that age, that's age appropriate. Kids climbing on stuff, going underneath the table, and all of that. 1, 2, and 3, it's age appropriate. It's when they begin to be 7, 8, and 9, and they're climbing on stuff, then that's not age appropriate. So we have to remember not to get frustrated with kids who are a certain age because the things that they're doing may just be age appropriate.
Yeah, he
Okay.
be but or he won't listen, and we'll tell him to stop doing something, and he'll do it anyway. Now you just heard me tell you to stop, and so it be stuff like that. So I get exactly what you're saying, Kenny. With this comment, we live in a world of leaders with stern parenting hints. We ended up with folks like Hitler, Trump, Putin, list goes on. So are you saying that corporate punishment created these peoples? That's an interesting.
Now, again, you have to remember it depends on how their parents parented them. Some people scream, yell, they abuse their kids, right? And when you're abusing your kids and you're doing all of these negative things to them, you're literally creating sociopaths and psychopaths.
Okay, Facebook user. I think they probably landed loaded. A lot of children are more mature than adults. That's so-called racism. Now, and I would agree with that in some cases, because I think and I was I wouldn't say I was more mature, but it was extenuating circumstances, right? You have someone who was addicted to substances and stuff, and so the kid would have to rise above that situation. And so, yes, in some cases that is true. Kenny's saying we also have to prepare for this. Yeah, you can prepare for this crazy world. I mean, it's getting crazier by the minute, but you also have to be able to equip them effectively with, just mechanisms when they're, as they going through trials and tribulations through life. Um, some of these kids need to be whooping the adult.
Okay, now let me go back to that. Go back
Oh,
to that. Facebook user. Now I see you said some of these kids need to whoop the adults. And now we do have some adults out here that act like they don't have common sense and they're doing things that are totally inappropriate. However, there should always still be a standard of behavior. But that is funny.
Sparing the rod can also be holding back warnings and teachings. There are parents who have been scared off by the government and lack backbone in their own homes over the fruit of their relationship. Hmm, that's an interesting comment. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Now
Respond.
let's go back to that. I don't know if you kind of chimed in, Dwayne, a little bit after us. But we did say that, in certain situations, parenting styles are going to be different. Some people believe in spanking, others don't believe in spanking. It just depends on the temperament of the child. And the government, I believe in the state of Indiana, that on the books you can still spank your children. You just can't leave bruises and marks. It's the difference again between discipline, you're disciplining your children, spanking and beating your children. You cannot beat your children. That's against the law. And there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it.
And then, of course, your sister says she's never been paddled. Um, I'm pretty. You probably haven't because you like to fight. So I'm like Jesus walking away from you. You know what I'm saying? He's like,
I,
hey, go
I
ahead.
no, I told Uchi she never got whoopings. She never been fat
What?
out. None of that. No.
Why? Well, because she's the
Mm-mm.
baby. That's why.
She's the baby, but it was more so because she was asthmatic. She had a lot of allergies and different things like that. And they didn't want to send her over to
Right.
no attack.
Like Anthony said, it didn't say him because he had him right.
Definitely a boy.
Yeah.
Anthony, you probably was getting into all kind of destruction.
Many marriages and relationships end because the parent wants to control and impose their parenting. Yeah. Yes, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I've heard in many instances where the mother agrees, thinks the father is overbearing and vice versa. I mean, yes, and it can be very divisive because it'll come it'll come to a space where it'll be like, okay, can I really trust you around my child to, parent them correctly? Because I believe that you are being abusive, and it's two different interpretations of that, right? And so, but I think that goes back into the perspective of, is your marriage on the same page? Because if your marriage is on the same page, you would have talked about some of these things as far as when it comes to parenting your children. And so, yes, you are absolutely correct when you talk about that. Go ahead.
That's another thing. That's why it's so crucial and critical for couples before they get married to go to marriage counseling.
Yeah.
Because marriage counseling, you get in there, you talk about the things that you guys want in a marriage, what you would like to see together. And if you have different parenting techniques, that might be, a big thing where you guys can't agree on that. Some people believe in spanking, some people don't believe in spanking. And it depends on how they were raised. If they were raised in a home and they felt like their parents were too strict and they seen corporal punishment all the time, they're not going to want to raise their kids like that. And the other person has to be understanding of that.
When it's deciding to spank, need to ask yourself in the moment, whose needs am I meeting now? Well, I don't think my stepfather was asking that when he was whooping us. He was just beating. I'm just like, I'm just, he said now. I don't think he was asking that as when he was doing that. My anger as a parent or consequences for the child. That's good. That's a good.
That's correct. And I knew that's where she was going with that, because oftentimes when I don't ever think that you should spank your child when you're upset or you're angry. Excuse me, I dropped my note card. When you're upset or you're angry, you should never spank your child. You should, process like, okay, they did something that I did not like. But I need to talk to them and make sure that they understand why they are getting in trouble. And I told you that Crystal would have a different viewpoint of child rearing. So she believes that she said, we have gotten away from the slave mentality. So which she's always said that even as a child, she basically said that oftentimes when people spank their kids, it was because it was the way the slaves were disciplined when they did something wrong. And so that old thing is like, go pick your switch off the tree. You understand that? Or you talked about an extension cord. If you think about an extension cord, it kind of mirrors like a whip, right?
I
And
love that.
so a lot of people don't spank their kids anymore because of the way that the slaves were treated. When they did something wrong or undesirable, they had their toes cut off, they had their fingers cut off, they had their ears cut off, feet cut off if they ran, or they were whipped with the whip. And it left scars, not only physical scars, but mental scars. And so again, people choose to parent their kids differently just because of that. And you got to look at it. How many times when we were growing up and we were like, "Oh, they put their kids on timeout," and everybody started laughing about it, right? But really, really think about it. So if your kid is 2, I think it's 2 minutes per your child's age. So if your kid is 2 and they do something wrong, they need to be in timeout for 2 minutes. And although people laughed at that, a lot of them are not timid. When you spank your kids, you make them shrink, you make them feel inferior, and also you're causing them to have self-esteem issues. And so if there's a better way to parent your kids that way. And you got to think about it. Like, I'm almost 5'8", right? So if I'm 5'8" and a 2-year-old is doing something and I'm that tall, even if I'm 5'8", the kid might think I'm like 6'4". That's how big I look to a 2-year-old. So if I'm yelling down, looking at them and lashing out at them, I'm making them afraid. I'm making them scared. And so you're making them timid. And so as they grow older, can they defend themselves? Can they be assertive?
Hmm.
So you got to look at it like that.
I love that comment, Crystal. Look at her. You really changed my mind today. Right on, right on.
Thanks, sister.
I was interpreting scripture. See, I was saying that warnings, teachers, and whoopings are all disciplining depicted values, but all is necessary. We don't want spoiled milk, so we definitely don't want spoiled future citizens. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. Big bro, what do you all think of an adult parent to discipline a child that's not there? And see, that's where I was going because I've had many conversations with, because you're co-parenting, right? And so you're in a relationship with someone and that person has a child and you did, or vice versa, right? And it's interesting because if that child's not, well, I could use our situation. So in our situation, our fathers were not around, so my stepfather was there, right? And so and we had cousins who the same family dynamic, and so my mom would allow that, and as I got, because at first I did not understand that, right? But you're a kid, you're like, why is this dude whooping me? You know what I'm saying? Like, why mom allowing this dude to whoop me? But as I got older, I congratulated him on. I said, because we were rotten as kids. We were rotten in the mud, right? We were doing crazy stuff. But these are different times. And so some of the things that are being thrown out there because of my conversations with men is mental health. Because let's say if she has a child and it's a guy, if it's a boy, right? And he doesn't demonstrate a lot of masculine traits, right? And so the husband or the boyfriend that's in that situation may come off a little harsh, and the woman would say, well, that's mental anguish, you're being too hard on my son, or it could be vice versa with him, the boyfriend could say, you're being too hard on my daughter. And so I see that a lot of times. So um I believe, and I just said this, that goes back into the strength and of the relationship, because like you said, the if you're married, counseling, right? You talk about these things before you even get to that point, because one thing I do know, and my wife says this all the time, if the child sees you guys are divided, they're going to find ways to open it and make that creek bigger, right? And so
Divide and conquer.
yes, she says you have to be. And at first, for me, like, I didn't, not that I didn't understand that, but I didn't know what she meant by that. And I would see it with my daughter, and with not just parenting, it just with regular, daddy said I can get it. Mommy said no, daddy, and daddy allowed me to do it, right? And so she would do little things. And so I would peep. I said, okay, I got you. And so, yes, but go ahead. I know you want to respond to that. Go ahead.
When we were kids, my mom used to call that playing two against one. Like
Yeah.
my mother and father are so connected, they already knew. If you ask one parent and they say no, that's it. Like, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna allow you to start manipulating, because when they start things as children, they just grow into adults and they do that same type of behavior. So Anthony, I'll also address your question. I do believe that being in a blended family is hard in itself. So you have to make sure that your values are aligning with your mate, because kids will play on that. But if it's a kid that's in the home and it is not your biological kid, you have to make sure that you're still raising that kid with love. You wouldn't don't do to that kid what you wouldn't do to your own child. And then really talk about the discipline. If that kid's father or mother is in their life, I think that you should help raise, but the rearing, as far as like the spanking, should be on the bio parents. It shouldn't necessarily be on the stepmother or stepfather. That's only if the parents are active. Now, if they're absentee parents and you've been around the kids since they were 1 or 2, essentially there is no step. You're really like the kid's parent. And so again, that should be something that's talked about. Your spouse should be comfortable and trusting enough in you that you're going to raise the kid out of love and that you're not going to do anything to harm them.
Okay. That's a good question, big bro. I met bats, broomsticks, shoe switches, but great grandmother and grandma. Yep, and so that's that generation. That was that
Mhm.
generation. Um, those on adults that have been under parenting. You know what she was responding to?
I think she's replying to people who still wants to like spank kid, not really spank kids, because that's different. That's kind of like tapping on him, but really
Really?
just like whooping kids and stuff like that. She said those are kids who probably were underparented. I'm
I
assuming
only
that's what
allow
she's
those
saying.
I trust, which is less than a handful. Yep, to discipline our child only after they have observed and learned my discipline, verbal use, and reinforcements. Yep. And so it's so funny. I remember one time we were visiting I think it was my mom, and I forgot what happened, but she was like, "Go over there, take a time out." My mother, y'all use the time out. I'm like, "Mom, we different. You know what I'm saying? We do it different." So I'm like, she was like, "No, she like you can tear that tail up," but uh, again, it's generational, and so that's what
Mhm.
and it made me realize that too. And so is that we're in this mental space, and so we're trying to do things more effectively. And so, actually, what's interesting too, when I've seen that the effect that it has on my children, they know I'll get upset with them if they do something that frustrates me. But you know, really just raise my voice a little bit, and it'll get their attention.
Mhm.
And so now I don't even think my son has been popped. No, I don't pop his legs at all. I haven't popped up for anything really. So, I agree. I agree with that. You have a response?
No, I think that's good. You should not have. Actually, what's funny is me and my sister was having this conversation the other day about one of our friends' children. I don't think that it is appropriate for you to allow everybody that you know to discipline your children because it kind of confuses them. They can give your kids some direction, but everyone should not be disciplining your children. The mother and the father should be the anchor in their children's life, making sure that they get everything that they need.
We got whipped by all our aunties and all. They didn't get us. We got whipped by everybody. The man's house is already split off top, walking into a Reddy's family situation. As an addition, should they have their own children, the children can grow resentful if they see him chastising their seed only. Yeah, no, I agree with that. Remember, the man is Christ, and marriage and family's disciples do. Don't strip the masculine away from the classroom. No, I agree with that. That first statement because I've seen that too. Like I'll be honest with you. With our own, with my situation, you know, uh, we would see my stepfather. So we all would do something, right? Let's say we spilled Kool-Aid on the floor or something late at night, or nobody got it up or something, right? If me and my brother had did it, we'd have got immediately whooped, right? But if my sister did it, and you talked about this earlier, she would get a pass. And so me and my brother be like, no, that's not fair. You know what I'm saying? Like you, that resentment. And so you got to be. I think also it goes to being consistent too, because if you're going to set the standard for that, it has to be all the way across the board, even if the children is yours or not. Go
I
ahead.
agree that I agree. That's why when we were talking to Anthony, I said parent the children out of love. Like whatever the tone that you set for your kid should be the same tone for their kid. Because once you're a blended family, you guys are family, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't be in that space where you're showing favoritism because the kids will notice that and they will have those feelings of resentment.
And so we do have the word of the day, which was unconditional love and the definition. So let me give the Swahili interpretation behind it. Upendo usio na masharti. And you can read the definition. Go ahead.
Okay, so unconditional love, love without strings attached. It's love offered freely. You do not base it on what someone else does for you in return. You simply love them and want nothing but their happiness. This type of love, sometimes called compassionate or agape, might sound somewhat familiar. And I remember in our first podcast, I talked about agape love. Agape love is the love that we receive from God. It is like love without limits. That's the highest form of love.
So would you say, so let me ask you a question. Would you say that not so okay, because I know you've been in relationships, right? And
Mhm.
so that unconditional love, have you ever witnessed it outside of your parents?
You know what? To be honest, I'm trying to think.
Because that's
I'm going to say I have given unconditional love, but I don't feel like I have
mm,
received
mm,
unconditional love.
mm.
When you're in my because my parents taught me to love like that. When you love someone, it should be unconditional. It should be in its most purest, sincerest form. That's the kind of person that I am. If anybody actually knows me personally, some of you just know me from elementary school, junior high, or high school. But if you have a relationship with me and you've had that with me since after high school and you have some type of connection with me, you will know to be in my presence is something like just like very amazing and very genuine. So oftentimes I will give like unconditional love, but I feel like sometimes in relationships people love you, but they love you with conditions, right?
Mhm.
When I love someone, it's unconditional, it's very pure, and I'm a very loyal person. So outside of like my parents, I can say I've given that, but I don't believe that I've received that.
And that's why I asked you that, because I know how I seen it yesterday, like how, and I'm like, that's cool, right? Um, and I'm gonna say the same. I feel the same way because a lot of times, well, outside my wife now, because we're married, but I'm like, let's put her to the side and just say, besides that relationship, anything prior to that, outside of my parents, no, I haven't. And my thought is that real unconditional love? You know what I'm saying? Do you think that's real? Like, do you think that's outside of your, because think about it, your parents are always going to have your back, whether robbing 55 banks, right? Or if you're doing something crazy, they always gonna have your back. Do you think, like you said, there's always conditions attached to that? Do you
I
think it's real to have that?
it is. It's definitely real to have it. Have you ever seen a couple in the grocery store? I know people talk to me all the time. They tell me their whole life story. But have you ever seen a couple in the grocery store and they might be in front or behind you and they start talking to you and they say, "We've been married for 60 years. We've been
Mm-hmm.
married for 70 years." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like how old are you guys?" That is unconditional love, right? Because people, what you don't understand is like in relationships, people do fall in and out of love. But just because you have a disagreement does not mean that you give up on each other. So,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes in relationships, people get together, they get married, but they separate because they've outgrown each other. And in that sense, that was just your seasonal mate. It wasn't your lifetime mate. It's a difference. People are marrying their seasonal mates. I'm only supposed to be with this person for a season. They teach me something, I teach them something. We need to move on, right? If you marry your life mate, the person that is your lifetimer, right? Then that's when you see that unconditional love. And I really, really, I'm so sincere. I really believe that it's true. But some people are only getting into relationships with strings attached. Sometimes it's physical. Oh, that person is visibly beautiful. They're appealing to the eyes, but they don't have any substance inside. So after so long, oh, they was just pretty. They don't have no substance. I got to get rid of that person. Well, I married this person because I feel like they was my security blanket. Well, now I got my own security, so I'm gonna get rid of that person. They gotta go, right? Well, I married this person because I thought they was gonna be a professional athlete, or I thought she was gonna be an actress. Well, they didn't do that, so I got to get rid of them, right? And so those sometimes people are marrying people, or they get into relationships with strings attached, and so at that point, it's not unconditional love. It's loving with conditions.
No, and that's why I asked that, because I and with my kids, I see that I'm unconditionally going to be there for them, right, and
Mhm.
vice versa, right. But then when we start meeting different people, just getting off on a tangent, like you like, wow, like you really did love me, and that's like this goes with friends, family
Mhm.
members, you know, just people you come in contact, you would think that would be in your corner. And, you know, we like I'm the same way. I jump out the window for you, like head first in speeding traffic on the damn Ryan at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Like I'm that, because that's how we were brought up that way. And it's like when I don't get that in return, I kind of get sour, because I'm like, dang, so is it me or is it them? Right? And then go ahead.
Eugene, it's them. Amaru, I have been around you for a while, and just the chemistry that you have for people, the passion that you give people is just so amazing. And I think sometimes you and I both, I think that's why we have such a good working relationship, because of who we are as people. But the one thing that we messed up on as we were growing through life is we were expecting people to be a you and a me.
Yeah,
Everybody's not a you and a me.
right.
We're going to keep pouring into people's cups while they're depleting our cups. And so in this season in our life, we have learned to pour into each other's cups. So we have a great working relationship. But we have to understand moving forward that everybody can't be Amaru and everybody can't be Candace. And so essentially that's why you were sour. And that's why when I was going through my storm, I felt betrayed because I expected people to be Candace and have a heart like Candace, and they couldn't give me that because that's not who they are as a person.
And that's why
But it says more about them than it
yeah,
does about you.
because that I that's just side tangent, that the unconditional love, because you know I would expect, like, because when you're a parent, right, and your child, like my daughter, I tell all the time, I don't care what you do, right, I'm gonna always be, there's breath in this body, I'm gonna be here, right? So is it abnormal for your child to expect that in a mate? You know what I'm saying? What I'm saying? And so, like with my wife, like when we would have our storms, and I would, and I would just think about stuff. I'm like, damn. So if I'm doing it, and she doing it, like we don't, and it's like we have to. When you meet that person, because I know when I met her, I said, this is the person. I knew it right then, and I'm gonna spend the rest of my life with this person. Some things had to change with her. Some things had to change with myself. But the thing that mattered to me the most was that part, that unconditional love. Like I said before, if the car is on fire and you see me driving on the back in the driver's side, and that thing is on fire, somebody on the back pouring gasoline on that joke, and it's just flaming, are you gonna get in the car with me, or are you just gonna watch and let the car burn down? And so like that's why I'm like, because I know as parents, tied into the podcast, we gonna jump out the window for our babies, bad or right or wrong, right? But I always think it like next step, like for your kids, obviously, yes, you want them to expect that. But should you as a parent be like, now if now I know that with mom, like, with my kids, I know it's not going to be the same expectation when you meet each, different person or possible mates, because like you said, they're not the same. We're all not the same. You can't expect what I give to you from this guy, because he probably didn't have the same parental upbringing, right? And so he doesn't understand what that feels like, what that's about. So go ahead. I know you want to respond. Go ahead.
So then that's when we talk about red flags and green flags, right?
Mm-hmm.
Although she can't expect that from everybody, she is going to have a standard because she's going to say, my dad is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
So remember, I said you're her first love. So yes, she's going to look for those same qualities in the man that she begins to date. Okay, she's going to look for those qualities, although he may not have them. That's when she has to say, hey, I need to look for the red and the green flags. The green flags are the good flags, the red flags are the ones that I do not want to see. And so again, remember when we say be equally yoked in relationships. So if that young man doesn't have those qualities, he doesn't have the same background that she was raised in, and there might be some toxicity in it, she needs to run. Right. And I know all people are not the same, but if you begin to navigate through life and you're seeing individuals with more red flags than green flags, don't even put yourself in that situation, So yeah.
That was good. That's why I was asked that. But getting
Crystal
back
had a
on track,
comment.
we got Krista. Spanking your children should be used as the absolute last resort. It should never be used as the first thing you do to make them do what you want them to do.
I agree.
I agree. Uh, Also, be mindful how parents teach one another. Children are watching, and also defining love by yes. And so she's huge.
Parents interactions. I
Yes,
agree with that.
she's huge. So, and I'm later.
Hi,
Oh, okay.
Lakeisha. Oh, since she popped on here, so I want to shout. We're going to do a lot of our shout outs about the support and the donations that we got. But Lakeisha actually donated 48 notebooks to the podcast for our community event. So thank you. It took me a while to stuff those backpacks, but I thank you, Lakeisha, and I appreciate you.
And right here, so because we're going to talk about that right now, because this is the end of the
Oh,
subject.
wait a minute. Did we answer her comment? Go back to her comment. I don't even think we answered it.
Which one?
Oh, okay. I just got out of my staffing. Okay.
True love expects no tit for tat. Yes, that would be 50-50. I hate 50-50, 100-100. And now your relationship becomes corporate instead of spiritual. People who operate the way fear being gobbled up. It's sort of like if Walmart and Amazon merged, someone would have to take the leading name. This is why I don't like hyphens in marriage. Folks don't truly understand what marriage is. Spiritual in Christ is disciples are spiritual or what you're. Yeah, I agree. It takes effort and hard work. Yes, and thank you again, Miss Lakeisha, for the donation. We don't really have any more.
I
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
what
ahead.
did I
Go ahead.
do? Okay, I did. Oh, going back to parental love and why it is important. So I wrote this down as a definition. So parental love is important because it can secure bonds and friendships with peers. It teaches kids that are shown parental love are better at regulating their emotions when faced with stress and difficult situation. A secure attachment with parents helps promote the child's cognitive, emotional, and social development. And that just goes back to saying earlier about the kisses, the hugs, and telling your kids that you love them. It helps them develop cognitively, and it also helps them regulate their emotions. So, if you ever worked with children, you ever worked in a school, you ever seen kids in the community, and the kids are fighting, they're upset all the time, they have anxiety, they're always complaining about stomach aches and headaches and different things like that, is because they are not bonded with their parents at home and they have a hard time regulating their emotions. And children who have a hard time regulating their emotions have a hard time as adults regulating their emotions. So they have a hard time communicating effectively. They have a hard time expressing themselves. A lot of them suffer from anxiety and depression, and they also become violent individuals. Okay, so loving on your kids is super important. And remember, kids don't do what you do. I mean, kids don't do what you say, they do what you do.
And I'd like to add one more thing too. Before we pivot. This is funny. One of my mentors, she has an older no, it's him. He has an older son, and he had two other sons. And he's Jamaican, and he says he used to say all the time. He was like, he's like, because you provide so much for your children, right? They see you working hard, busting your tail, and then they want to go off and do some thug stuff, right? And he said, he was like, "Do you think that's hereditary?" And I said, this was some years ago. I've always thought about that. He said, because, you know, I came to America, got it out the mud. He owns a huge business here in Milwaukee. Um, provide jobs for other CPA. That's why I interned at. And, he was like, I don't know where this came from, right? He said, because we don't have none of this activity in our family. And so it was me, him, and another CPA. And my other mentor, she said it was kind of the same thing with her. She was like, because we bust our tails for them to provide the life we think is necessary for them, great education, but you want to veer off and be this, right? And so he was they both the kids in different situations. She was a negligent parent. She had kids, and so now her mother was taking care of her kids, right?
Mhm.
In his situation, he had kids by different women, and you know he got locked. He got put in jail trying to be some thug guy, some hood dude. He's like, "Why are you a hood dude? And we stay in the suburbs, right?" But then he just throwing it out there, right? And they're taking care of his offspring while he's in jail. And so when he asked me that, Caleb was young then. He was like, "Is that? Do you think that's hereditary?" And I'm just like, I mean, I'm not a mental therapist. I'm like, I don't know. I said, but that is a good question. Like, what do you think? In concluding this podcast, what do you think may have led to something? Obviously, different households, different dynamics, like you said, DNA. But what do you think? What happened in those different situations?
So this is funny. I think this is a big topic because actually my cousin posted it, I think 2 days ago.
Hmm.
And he said, "Hey, why do children?" My cousin lives in North Carolina. He said, "Why do children that come from good homes that live in the suburbs want to be hood? Why do they want to be hood? Why do they want to sell drugs? Why do they want to do this when they come from a working class family or middle class family?" So again, I would say the eyes and the ears are the windows to the soul. So you have friends, peers, right? You have their peers that they hang with, the media, social media, and then environment. People begin to make it look like living a street life is appealing, okay? Or doing these things are appealing. So instead of them focusing on their education, they want to the quick get rich quick money scheme. All right, so I can do it. I don't have to work as hard. I don't have to grind it out as my parents did to get this money quick. Okay, I'm
I think
sorry.
you freezing up.
It did. Or it's their friends making this lifestyle looks appealing, right? Everybody wants to do things for clout until it's time to go to jail or they get in trouble for it. Okay, so and oftentimes it's not something that the parents may have done wrong, it's just who they begin to start hanging around with, right? And if you're not influencing someone, then they're influencing you. And oftentimes people are doing stuff just because it looks exciting, it looks fun, until they get in trouble. And so it's nothing that they probably parents that have done per se wrong themselves. It's just who they're choosing to hang around. You see kids all the time that come from really good families where they had everything, loving, nurturing, finances were together, and now they're addicted to drugs because it was who they started hanging around. They instead of them choosing to be leaders, they were being followers.
And so I've always, when he asked me that, I thought that was really interesting when he asked me that, because I was like, and I'm like, I just, I think her, so I'm thinking about, maybe he wasn't as active as he should have been. He didn't monitor the his son's friends, or and so when when he said that, as a parent, now I have those same thoughts, because I'm like, what if my son, get the, and I'm like, oh my God. So I'm like really overly like cautious, with how I interact with my kids. And so I've always had those thoughts, when you have, you know, like you said, nice homes, parent, mother, they both work and make, middle class, working class, and then the kid wants to be, something that they totally don't know what that is, right? They don't even understand. As we transition to our cleanup yesterday, they don't know what this means, right? They don't know. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Real quick, go back to Lakeisha's two comments and then we'll adjust Jay's comments because they're really similar.
Hmm?
So Keisha said, raised one way, working class family, and the children want to be street or hood. I agree with that. And let's go down to Jay's Lakeisha's second comment. Oh, yeah, okay. Nurture and nature both are contributing factors. Yes. 50% of mom, 50% of dad, everything else is environmental. And Jay as well said nurture environmental factors. Absolutely. Okay, so what's going on inside of the home, right? Then what's going on outside of the home? We often talk about how kids get addicted to drugs. It's because accessibility. How accessible is the drugs to the children? They start out doing the drugs as recreational, then they become dependent, then they become addicts, right? So if they're exposed to certain environments, these are the things that they think is cool. These are the things that they're going to be doing. And as far as the brown people, oftentimes with them, they're chameleons. They're going to shape themselves to whoever they are around at that time. If you put them in an environment and there's people who are successful, they can gravitate to that. If you put the other half in an environment where people are selling drugs and they like that lifestyle, they're going to gravitate to that. So it just depends. And oftentimes that happens because they truly don't know who they are as a person and they really are not connected with their heritage.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I just thought that was always interesting, So, like you said, nature, nurture are factors in both. It's just that bothers me as a parent, because I'm like, I would hate for my, and I understand how hard it is being an active parent, and when you're active and then they turn around and do that crazy stuff, you like, I didn't have no parts in that. I wonder where that came from. And so I've always gonna have that on my mind. And so we would like to pivot, right? Because we had an event yesterday, and I love doing this yesterday, because, and I'm just gonna share pictures. I'll let just Candace, give her commentary, because we had a great time yesterday. Um, with our cleanup event, right? This was, one of the cool things about yesterday. We had people coming up, getting school supplies for the kids, which basically what the event was about on the back end. And go ahead, Candace. I'll let you give your thoughts on this. That's our court, by the way. Yeah. Yeah. No,
So
yeah.
since we talked about parental love, and Eugene is always kind of teasing me and Crystal and my sister Shalon about, and we have our brother also, about our relationship with our dad. He calls my dad Black Jesus. He actually had the opportunity. He can hear him talking in the background all the time, but he actually had the opportunity to meet my dad in person. So just tell us a little bit about how that went yesterday, Eugene, before we dive into the topic.
It was cool. He's what I imagine to be just a real reserved cat, real cool. Uh, he's about his business though. Uh, Structured, right? He had the generator out, grill had the. I said, okay, I see how you moving. Y'all had the condiments out. So he's a straightforward guy. You know, and what was cool about it was because when he came, wife was right there, y'all right there, right? The baby's out, and so I could tell he's a man. He a man with purpose, and so I have those different optics and I think the funny thing, I love older black men. I love them because that's what I aspire to be, right? And then I was teasing about the beard and like my mother like it. Leave that man beard alone. I like my wife want my beard gray right now, and I'm 41. I'm like, hey, I got my little strands, but no, he's a wonderful guy, and I really appreciate it. Then what was telling? This is how I know what type of guy he is. I am in the podcast and forgot my shirt. He walks in with the shirt on. So I'm like, you a cold dude, man. You know what I'm saying? And he out there flipping and he chilling. You know what I'm saying? And so no, that was really cool. And so I love meeting older black men because they teach me wisdom. They teach me just protocol and how he, just communicate with people. Right? I love seeing that. I love seeing, him, and your mom sitting right there. They chilling like they on the beach somewhere in Hawaii somewhere. You know what I'm saying? I love that. And so no, he was dope. He was pretty dope. Mom was dope. Your sisters were dope. Your whole entire family's dope. And so it was a great day. Like Mickey said, he said it was a great day, beautiful day. Let me start in some comments. I'm gonna go through these pictures too.
Okay. So thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad you got to meet him. And so people always talk about submission. Now you understand, like a woman will submit to a man when he's a real man and he knows how to properly lead.
So some pictures. Go ahead.
I mean,
Yeah.
Keisha Candace's dad is great, and her mom loved them both. She met my people. All right, so guys, I just want to say thank you for everybody who came out to support us on yesterday. The community event was a hit. It was a blast. A lot of people came out. They supported. The kids were cleaning up, and I would just like to say this. Joe went to school with us. I forget Joe's last name, but Joe.
McMillan.
Okay, so Joe McMillan went to school with us. That's my great nephew. That is actually my nephew's baby. Aubrey. He's so handsome. So Joe McMillan kids came out, and my cousin Charles Wilson's kids came out. We had some kids that were there, but specifically these kids, I have never seen any kids in their generation because the kids are different, as Amaru said earlier. The kids are totally different, but I haven't seen kids work that hard since we were children. These kids came out, they didn't complain about it being hot or they were tired. No complaints. They came out, they worked really hard, they got the jobs done. And so everything that they got yesterday, they absolutely deserved it. They got those free backpacks, and also me and Amaru had gift cards, and I gave some of the kids gift cards, and we also gave some of the kids cash because they did such an amazing job. So I'm super proud of them. So these are just some pictures that he's showing. These are the backboards he was talking about. We're going to try to come up with some funds to replace those because someone in the neighborhood has shot them out. But the kids were still able to, after they cleaned up, they were outside playing basketball. So that was still a good thing that the courts are up. We just have to get more backboards from them.
Mickey dunked on some of the kids too. So we were playing basketball. They was trying to get me. I said, my knees bad, man. I can't jump like that. Mickey still jumping like that at 46. But one thing that did kind of break my heart too is when, we are cleaning up, we see a bunch of bullet shells everywhere. And the kids,
we did see that.
And
My dad picked up one. That was the first one I had seen when he picked it up, and he was blown away. He was like, "Where are those bullet shells at a park?" I'm like,
Yep. And so that was why we got together to pull this off. And so this was pretty cool. All the people who came and showed up. As you see, that was Ash. Well, that's not Ashley. That's his lawnmower. And so one of the things I would like to say too, that it blew my mind. When Ashley first came, when he first got there, he like, "What's up, UGK?" We shook up. The first thing he said was, "Man, Glenn Ryan don't look like this. They bleep together." And so, like that, like kind of hit me crazy because I'm like, damn, like And when you think about Glen Ryan, you don't see it. Don't look like I don't know if people been there, been to the little league in a while. Uh, the weeds were taller than me, and I'm 5'8". And so that's almost what? That's over 60 inches. There's Black Jesus right there. See,
That's
look,
my
got the shirt on.
dad.
Right. And see, your Mrs. Wilson, you better leave that man beard alone. My wife, she wants my beard that color right now. She's like, she said, I think she wants me to dye gray. I'm like, why would you dye your hair gray? And I'm 40, like, you want me to get old, but
She wants you. They call them silver foxes. She wants you to be a silver fox.
yeah, can't even be no silver fox. But now he was doing this thing. Can you imagine that hair gray with them braids like that? Can you imagine? Come on, like I'll be mad, right?
And you was working so hard. You was out there sweating. It was hot yesterday.
But if you can see, like this is one of the slides and the swing set, and look at on the right side, you can see how high the weeds have gotten with the trees and stuff and growing. And so we cut all of this stuff down. Think about was that a seesaw or something to ride the little kids to be on? And look at the swing. Like before this picture, the weeds were above
you couldn't even see the swing
you couldn't
set.
even see the swing set. And so we were cut. And so shout out to my brother-in-law because he let me use his trimmer and his manual shears. Those are some of the bags that we had. We had a good day, and obviously Black Jesus putting it down on the grill. So I did have me a brat. I don't do the pork, but I did have me a brat.
No, that brat was beef.
Oh, was it? See, I couldn't.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good. Let me keep going. Hold on. See, and that's the before picture. And it was like that throughout the entire playground. And the baseball field was that high. Remember? Right? And so, me and my man talking. And then she gonna say, how he gonna know your birthday, but you don't know his? And I'm like, that's Michael Jordan because it's by Michael Jordan. So that's my guy right there. But we had a good time, man. And the cool, and see, that's Mr. One cutting hair. The cool thing about this event too, because the main, I don't think if anybody paid attention, you see black men. I wanted black men out there, right? And some that showed up that I even forgot to mention that pulled up and shot. So we're gonna give shout outs to Ashley Love, so not in no particular order. Joe McMillan, because he came with his weed whacking with mine broke, right? If mine was breaking, why some weed whacking, right? And I paid a lot of money for that thing, so I was mad. And he come with his little, when we got new stuff and it breaks us all cheap, and he come with a little old looking thing and it's doing the job. I'm like, come on, man. He like, come on, Gene, you can't come out here with that. So shout out to him. Shout out to Eddie who came. Big homie Bernard, he came out and we had a great conversation because it's interesting when you do stuff like this, it reinstills hope in people. And he said, a lot of times he said he put money into that part, right? And he said he got frustrated because wasn't nobody, I guess, trying to own it with him. And as soon as he said that, I said, bro, you got a team now. You got a team behind you. All of these guys that showed up along with Candace's family, obviously, but think about that. All black men. We was, Kitty Man, he pulled up the trailer and got all the trash bags. You know what I'm saying? And so it was just a good time. Jokes being told. Paul showed up, with the Crocs. Paul said, what's up? Ashley said, not them Crocs.
Now, the funny thing about Paul is, we all went to school together. I visually seen him walk in the park, had no clue who he was because, for one, he had this beard and he had this hat on. And I walked over to introduce myself, and then I seen his face. I said, "Oh, you come in disguise? That's not playing." But what I will say is that I have being in a space with all those black men, and I didn't hear any complaints. They literally jumped out of their trucks, out of their cars. They had, if they didn't have plastic bags, they had some form of utensil that they can use to help clean up. They were bringing things. Antoine was there. He bought breakfast. He bought donuts. Mike is another one of our classmates.
Yes.
I asked him to donate a fruit basket.
Yes.
He didn't just bring one. He brought 2 huge trays. and the fruit was amazing. It was a hit. My mom will always go over and beyond. We talked about having the brats, the hamburgers, and the hot dogs. My mom made ribs. She made spaghetti. We had so much. So we had so much fun, and I just really, really enjoyed it. And I love the support. I love the people who came out. I'm trying to make sure that we hit everyone.
Janair,
But
she came out. Janair got
Janair did come, and
yes,
Janair jumped double dutch.
double dutch, right. Um,
Mary did the videos for
yes,
us.
special shout out to her because my wife, when I, because my wife didn't come, there was some other stuff happening because my sister didn't come, so not gonna get that. But she's wanted to see what was happening, and so Mary pops up and she's like, what am I supposed to really be doing? I just gave her my phone, right? And by me giving her I said, do your thing, whatever you need to do it or whatever. And so she created all this video media content. She's great at that. And so shout out to her because my mom and my wife was very impressed with how she put those images together and the music behind it and everything. So that was pretty cool. So some really special shout out to her. The Joy showed us special shout out to her. Shout out to go ahead.
I have a list of names that I really want to go through.
Yes.
But before I say that, I'm sorry guys, I have tons of pictures in my phone that I have to upload so you guys can see actually the book bags be given away and different things like that. And I still have some gifts that I did not give away. I'm actually going to give the basket that we had to the first woman that donated, and so I'll call her name at the end of the show. But again, thanks everybody. So I want to give a special thanks to everyone who donated. I'll call out the names. If I forget, you guys, charge it to my mind and not my heart. All right. So I want to say thank you to my mom and my dad. They are always supporting me. Anything that I ever thought about doing, they supported me. Amaru, a special thanks to you for making that happen. If I say that I want to do something, all I have to do is say it one time, and Amaru is going to execute it. All I have to do is say it one time. My parents are going to make sure that they follow up, and my sister. So I just want to give a special shout out to them. All right, so Kenny, he was the first male who actually gave a donation. So I'm gonna task you with giving him a gift, Maru, because I got Candy. Candy was the first woman who gave the donation, so she gets the gift basket. Then we had Jill. Jill used to be a colleague of Eugene, so thank you to Jill. Thank you to Eddie Lowe. He was actually the fourth person. Amaru, your brother-in-law, I don't know his name, but he actually donated.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so we have Vern and Nikki, we have Janair, Jackie, Ronnie Williams, Kenny Man, Jaquise, Kevin, Eddie Spearman. We have James Bullock, who also donated. Twan. We have Alfred Williams, Mary Kennedy, D. Williams, Gina, Jackie Parker, Marcus Ford. My cousin Pam donated. My sister actually, Crystal donated as well. Shalon gave me a donation. Aaron, somebody who Tay, some of these people Eugene know. If I forget anybody, let me know because now that was Tay. Yeah, Dante gave us a donation. Eugene and his wife also gave us a donation. Ladonna, which is your sister, gave us a donation. And if I forget, one of your coworkers just sent, she zailed me over the weekend. Actually, someone sent 200 and someone sent 50. The 200 came from
Arium, which is it's the ones that owns the business here in Milwaukee. So shout out to her.
And then was it Deanna?
Diana, yes. From
Diana sent one as well. So if I didn't say everybody's name, I apologize. I try to keep the best notes that I could in my ledger that Eugene is always laughing about. I'll show you my ledger, guys. I love it. I got it from my university when I got my master's. I don't know why you laughing. I paid good money for this ledger. My school was private.
Also, shout out to Arota, Luella, because after we were done, we left and went to a spot, P7 Hookah Lounge, which is on Lake Street. We were playing cards in there. Juan came, Ashley came, Lulu and Roll was there. Shout out to them. Special shout out to Lashana Terrell because I didn't know she can cook like that. I said, "Dang, you killing these chili cheese fries, right?" And so, special shout out to her. It was good seeing her. Mick, yourself, your sisters, so it was a good time, man. And we need to have. We got another person.
I did forget somebody. I'm so sorry. Eric Johnson gave us a donation.
Yes, he did.
I did not want to forget. Eric gave us a donation. Who else? I'm trying to think. Lakeisha gave us those 48 notebooks. The people who do my vending for my posters, my signage, American Sign and Print, they donated the stickers for the podcast that I put on the little kids' book bags. Trying to remember, it was so many people doing so much. So if I forgot, just inbox me. I'll make sure that I shout you out the next time. My mother bought some jewelry for the podcast from Jacinta. So shout out again to my mom. Shout out to Jacinta for getting those packages together. Um, trying
That
to
ticket
see.
was fire. Look at Shalon. Shalon's
Yeah, so we ordered chicken last night at the after and Rashada Terrell, our classmate, made the chicken. So yeah, the chicken was good.
DM. Okay, we'll let you know. It's her cash app, Lashad. I'll put it on here for you so you can see what it is. But it was actually pretty cool, man, because we need to have that's the if you look on there, that's the cash app right there. If you got cash app, Latanya. And thank you. It's pretty cool when you do events like this because afterwards, right, when everybody left, right, because y'all was up out of there like at about 12:30, y'all was like, no, we
My
got to roll.
dad had okay,
They had stuff to do. No, I got it.
no, so listen, my dad retired from the steel mill and he was there for 45 years. And
Congrats.
so he retired, he's been retired probably about 4 years now, maybe 4 or 5 years. And they had their annual cookout. He couldn't go last year because everybody was kind of stressed about you having a COVID shot and things like that. So this year he had the opportunity to go. And so he was such a soldier. He was like, oh my goodness, I didn't know my cookout was on the same day as your event. And I was like, Dad, you know what? Me and Amaru can handle the grill. He was like, no, I told you guys I'm going to do it. I was going to do it. I'm going to keep my word. I'll just get up. We'll get to the park. We'll do everything that you guys need. And then we'll pack up and then I'll go to my event. So when we was done, if the event was over at 12, by 12:30, we had everything loaded and packed and we were out because I think that's so important. He worked with some of those guys, 45 years they have been working together, 30 years, whichever, and I thought it was very important for him to get to his event as well. So yes, we did leave, but Amaru and some of the guys kind of stayed behind. But I just want you to share with them what you guys were talking about and how to let people know how they can get involved. Because we're going to start investing in commercial property and buying up real estate. And if you're serious and you want to get involved, just inbox myself or Amaru. He'll tell you a little bit about that.
So we had a couple conversations. One, so before we get to commercial, that conversation, you know, when you do events like these, you get to find out the history of the area, the politics of the area, and some of the things that's occurred in the area to cause the events to see where the park has gotten to. And so, when we were talking, Big Homie, he just said, man, we used to be out here. We had our own teams, baseball teams. The Delosas was out there. Shout out to them. They would be out there. But Mr. Bone with his family, they would be organizing teams. Marcus Ford, we had a conversation about that. And so one of the things he said, if you look at the area, the space, it's the basketball court. Then behind it is a tennis court. On the side of it is a playground, right? And so Eddie talked about this too. He said, stop cutting, allow the weeds to die off, and then mulch it, right? And so then we could paint the swing set and grab chains for the swings and stuff and just redo the swings and then blacktop the basketball court, but then ask the city to replace the backboards. And so I was like, okay, that sounds like a plan. But that conversation led to, okay, if we're doing that, then we're going to be invested in doing this every year. And so now the question would be, if we're going to do it, if it's going to be something like a Juneteenth or right before we go back to school. And so that was a great conversation because you can see the passion in these brothers' eyes when we start talking about that. And so I'm glad that the ones that showed up did, because these are the ones that matter. Like, these are the people, these names ring true. It gives it credibility, right? And so I'm very appreciative for those brothers and their time. I understand people got lives and people got stuff going on, but for them, not anybody. These are people. These are just not anybody's. For them to just take time out of their day. Actually, like Kenny, he was coming in town and he stopped there right after you guys left. and sent this guy over to pick up the trash.
I was
You
still there when he came to get the
Oh, did
trash.
you? Okay, okay.
Yes, and I
He
thought
sent
that
the
was
guy
really amazing.
Yeah, and so that like you could tell, like even though we all got lives, we all got stuff going on, these people care about that part because we it was a like I spent a lot of time over there, in my childhood, and so it was just a cool thing to see it. So we'll be going down the line when we start having that conversation about that event, and future events in the future. So yes, and so I will also be posting the pic that we should be sharing to either Ron Brewer or the mayor or someone from the city for them to get that replaced because it was a lot of pissed off people when they saw that, when they saw that backboard shot out. And so that's why I just posted a little while ago. So anybody who's from the area, please share that pic to the city page so they can get that replaced because if they could be like we're making them do their job. So we should be having to make someone who's getting paid your tax dollars to do their job, but we're gonna make these cats do their job. I want to say something else, but make them cats do their job. But anyway, so that's that conversation. This other conversation is around the commercial real estate. And so I met this young lady years ago in the class in my undergrad. Her name is Ariane Cassette. Absolute dynamite. Um, Make a long story short, we graduated in 2012, and so one day I look at I'm looking on LinkedIn. She's on a big old article, right? And she's 40 under 40. Most successful women 40 under 40. She's 33 now, and so this woman owns tons of properties here in Milwaukee. She's doing stuff in Chicago, North Carolina. She's looking at other places like Texas and Florida and just all over the country, right? And what she does is commercial real estate. She's a developer. And so how she got this start was that she graduated from this class. It's called ACRE, ACRE, Associate Commercial Real Estate class. And so I am now enrolling in the class. And I don't know if I'm in it in the next couple of weeks, but we'll find out in the next couple of weeks. I'll let you guys know. But the first thing I got in touch with her a couple of weeks ago. The first thing she said, find your group of Black people. And what she meant by that is she says, because if you want to be involved in something, you want to have a team behind you. And so that was the conversation we also had, because people, if we're going to be putting money into a park, you got to think bigger, right? You see, and I don't know if people been to Gary recently. If you look at the Lake Street and you see what they're doing, they're renovating that train station over there. They just cut off, was at 12 and it's just actually 20 now. So there is no back way to Glen Ryan. Remember that side street you can go behind the church, and they got rid of that, right? So they're making changes to the city as we speak, right? And so talking to Aria, she says one of the things that the city of Milwaukee is doing right now is they're looking for other areas to create revenue, right? Get profit. And so they're looking to purchase property in other cities. One of the cities is Gary, Indiana. And I'm not a spiritual guy. I'm not really spiritual, right? But that's just God, right? And so me knowing her, she is very stubborn. She's very urgent. She's very calculating in what she's doing. And she says, maybe you can be the vehicle for that avenue, right? And so I'm saying that I said all that to say this, people, if you want to be a part of this, you don't have to be our group. You can have your own group. You can be by yourself. But it's time that we start purchasing property back home. It's time. Because in another conversation I had when people left, I don't want to be too long because I know we went over as usual as we do. The houses in Etna on 10th Avenue, they were $28,000 last year. Those same houses this year are worth $128,000. So you know what they're trying to do? They're trying to get rid of all those people on the east side of the street on 10th Avenue because what as Big Homie said, they probably are trying to build a highway through Etna, right, to give the access to Chicago. And so I am pleading with you guys, start buying property back home, because If they're at $128,000 now, what do you think it's going to be in 2 or 3 years? You need to sit on that property, and you can create a lot of generational wealth just by buying a $3,000 to $5,000 property, right? On the other side of the street. Because if they're buying one side of the street, what do you think they're going to do to the other side of the street? They're going to buy that side too. And so this, and I said I like to say this program is going to enable you to get that process started. This program that has three elements: is development, construction, or property management. You can pick one of the three. This program is going to walk me through a lot of information, right? Whether it's underwriting, commercial underwriting, whether it is property management, low income housing, low tax credits, right? It's information upon information upon information. But the kicker though is that at the end of the class, they bring in funders, right? Politicians, investment bankers, and so forth. If because we all have projects, if the project is worthwhile, they invest in your project. And so if they're doing this, right, and so I'm gonna be involved in this, I am willing to share information for free. I just need your email because we forgot to do this when we were there. Get your email listing, and I will send you every week all the information that I learned, because the class is a 6-month class and we meet every Wednesday. So it's gonna be a lot of information. So, but if you're willing to put in the work, it's very rewarding at the end. And so I'm saying all of that to say, people, if you want to be part of this, you might want to get on the train right now, because this train is not stopping. It's going full speed ahead. And so I'll end with that. Sorry we don't have Black Business of the Day, or because we had a crazy weekend, right? But
Super
we will have a
busy.
topic coming up in 2 weeks to talk with you guys about. As all, do you have any closing remarks?
My just really want to say again, thank you to everybody for the continued support. We really appreciate you. Yesterday turned out great. I'm grateful to everybody who came out. We gave away more than 30 backpacks. We gave away gift cards. We had food, jewelry. So it was just a really good time. And I do want to say thank you again, special thank you to Amaru, because of his tenacity and him being focused and continue to plow through. I am on the development team with him, and we will be doing some great things within our community. Buying residential property is great, but we will be buying commercial property. And so, if you're serious and you want to get in with us, you want to be, like you said, a developer, or you want to be on the marketing side of it or the construction side of it, please let us know. Continue to stay focused, be great. We love you guys, and we will see you next time.
Peace.
Have a good night.